gentleman yields back. At this time, I acknowledge that the gentleman from South Dakota, oh, sorry about that.
I'm from South
The gentleman
Dakota.
from North Dakota, Mr. Armstrong, would like to be waved on without objection. Seeing none, okay. Chair now recognizes for his 5 minutes of questions the gentleman from the chairman of the entire committee, from Ohio, Mr. Jordan.
I thank the chairman. Director, how many federal inmates were released to home confinement under the CARES Act?
We had about 35,000 released under the CARES Act.
35,000?
Oh, excuse me, 35,000 is the number under FSA earned time credits. Under CARES Act, it was 13,000.
13, that's what I thought.
13,204.
13,000. On February 4th, 2023, Jason Galanis, after serving approximately 40% of his sentence, applied for home confinement. Very next month, the probation office approved that. You're familiar with that, right? Also, the very next month, March of 2023, the Pensacola warden approved. And then on June 9th, the Residential Reentry Management Center also approved Mr. Galanis for home confinement under the CARES Act. But then, 4 days later, the Board of Prisons denied it. Who made the decision to deny that?
The denial came out of the Residential Reentry Management Office.
After they approved it, 4 days later, they changed their mind?
So the chair and I spoke yesterday. I think there's some confusion around approvals and referrals. The warden has the ability to refer. Probation has the requirement to confirm that his housing option in the community is proper. That still doesn't approve a home confinement placement. The final decision rests with the Residential Reentry Management Office.
And they told Mr. Galanis on the 9th that everything was fine. And then on the 13th, they changed. Why?
That is not my understanding. The Residential Reentry Management Office did a thorough review of his case and concluded that he was, for a variety of indicators, would not be a good candidate for home confinement.
The Residential Reentry Management Center on June 9th approved Mr. Galanis' request for home confinement and then reached out to the Southern District of New York where he was prosecuted. Is that what happened?
That's not my understanding. My understanding is since he had more than 5 years on his sentence, it was practice for the Residential Reentry Management Office to reach out to the U.S.
Anyone
Attorney.
else get CARES Act release and home confinement under the CARES Act who had more than 5 years left on their sentence?
I can't answer that question.
I can. David
definitively,
McMaster
but I
did.
can tell
David
you.
McMaster did. In sentence for fraud, similar to Mr. Galanis, had a 188-month sentence and was given home confinement under the CARES Act.
We look at each case individually. I am confident that
Okay,
Mr.
so
Galanis' case.
this is what I'm getting at. What was the reason, whether it was an approval then a denial, what was the reason for the denial?
So it was a handful of reasons, and we look at the totality of the circumstances when we make
When you
these
say
decisions.
we, who ultimately makes the decisions? Does that rest with you?
No, sir. I do not review these.
Can you overrule it?
This is the residential.
Can you overrule what happens at the Residential Reentry Management Center?
I have never overruled one of their
Never.
decisions.
Okay. Then what were the factors that made this determination?
So the factors included the fact that in a previous incarceration cycle, he violated the conditions of his supervised release by texting a potential witness, and his bond was ultimately revoked. His role in the instant offense as a leader and organizer was outlined in the pre-sentencing report. As was mentioned earlier, he owed over $80 million in restitution. He had more than 10 victims and more than 5 years
How many
left on
were
his
turned down?
sentence.
The people who applied under the CARES Act, you gave approval to 13,204. How many were denied?
I don't have that number, but we're happy to look into it and get it back.
Is it a big number? Is it a small number? What's the number?
You know, Congressman, I wouldn't venture a guess under oath. I will tell you that towards the end of CARES Act, the number of requests that came in, I'm told, tripled as the population learned that the CARES Act was expiring. So I know at the time of his request, the numbers were very high.
Did the fact that the House Oversight Committee subpoenaed Mr. Galanis' business partner have any weight on the decision to deny his request?
No.
You're confident of that?
I have no evidence to suggest that the Residential Reentry Management Office would have taken that into consideration. That would have been outside BOP policy.
Because June 9th, they basically told him, okay, it looks good. June 13th, they deny it. Anything happened in between there that could have influenced the decision?
Not that I am aware of.
Well, that's
I-
when the subpoena was sent to his business partner on June 12th. We actually think that probably had some impact on the decision to deny his request. Given that other people, similar crime, similar sentence, were in fact approved, like Mr. McMaster. And you're saying that had nothing to do with it?
Correct.
And you don't know how many were turned down?
No, but happy to find that number and get it back to you. in the
Were
committee.
I mean, Mr. Gallant is nonviolent, his crime is nonviolent. Any people who were in for a violent offense were then given release under the CARES Act?
Congressman, I am confident that Mr. Galanis' case was handled within existing BOP policy, and I am aware that any part of his application was denied other than the merits that I just described to you.
Okay, well, the timeline doesn't seem to add up to what you just described there. I yield back.